sales. And they're looking to go back. It's sort of, you know, it was like, remember we said, I think a month or so ago, I think when we did our last class, and I just threw something out there for people to look at. I said, take this in consideration, even though I'm not going into this as a subject matter. The people have been asking to get off the plantation. And now they've been thrown off the plantation, off their jobs, and they're looking to go back on the plantation. I won't go through all the analysis of it, but take that in consideration as we're speaking.
It's time to do something different. It's
not just that. So what do you do when the paradigms of their education have not supported any Aquarian thinking? It's not that these things haven't been mentioned. Do you understand?
Right. Right.
However, the technologies that are harmonic with the realities of past times, that's more of future time, they haven't been exposed to. Their education is based around agency of human suppression. And what the priesthood has done is that they tie their life cycles to it, meaning that this is what they've done. As an example, like say, for instance, you meet the love of your life as an example, right? Mm-hmm. And it never dawns on you that the agreements that you're groomed from childhood to make or to seek to do when you grow up. You grow up, and as a little girl, you're thinking, you're seeing people around you going through these weddings and all this beautiful stuff, and you look and you groom your life to that. And you look for the love of your life, and you never dawns on you that the priesthood, you know, created this certificate system of sales of humans to humans, and it never dawns on you that even when you go through that system under them, that is actually a spell cast from the door, and 90% of it will never work. Because it's actually a spell cast. It is designed for human trafficking. It's not designed for love and harmony in your relationship with the divine creator in the heavens and all the stuff. The oath and everything. And it never dawns on you that a certificate even on the eggs in your womb. How devious this thing is from day one. All of the support systems around it, projected of love and monogamy and harmonics. And then people wonder why 90% of that, really 99% of it never works. Not in the intent, but in fact, it never works. Mm-hmm. And people end up blaming each other in the real deal, and they don't even know they've been manipulated from the beginning by a dark priesthood that's been using both God and economics and the Jesuses and Muhammad's, etc., for human trafficking purposes and actually dark side psychic energy attacks for profit. And look how many lives and mental problems and betrayals people have experienced in these platforms that they have given in their mind a divine origin because they were told that. And it's not that these things aren't divine in their nature, but the people never suspected that the priesthood have taken all these things and contaminated them deliberately for human trafficking. And so when you look at all of the support systems around these things that we've taken as norm, without a knowledge that the priesthood had actually contaminated the whole world. Because we usually attach to these things love, God, Jesus, commitment, loyalty, honor, and it always ends up being the opposite. And costly. And it never dawns on the people that the people who they've been calling government was doing this to them. So many people in their everyday relationships end up being angry at each other, not knowing that they were puppets. That's a hard thing for a lot of people to handle. It really is. It really is.
You know, I was having a conversation today with someone, and and I was looking at a video. Actually, this part came out of a video that they sent me, and it was about something that someone had discovered that was natural, that pretty much took care of almost anything that you can think of that they tell you can't get over. I'm just dancing around without mentioning. And this particular person that I spoke to had been given a diagnosis or prognosis of 4 months and was told to go to get ready for hospice for him and his family. And this was in March of 2019. I was talking to them today in November of 2020. Yes. What they did, other than what was told to them, is they sought out what the creator, what was natural, very simplistic, very inexpensive, did that, and
the whole paradigm
and was cured. Now, the people that had this particular product were at one time in the United States, and when they was found what they were doing and that people were getting cured, they ran them out of business and threatened to kill them and all kinds of stuff. So, but the fact of the matter is that anything, and it was a doctor talking too, almost anything that can be done naturally, it cannot be patented.
Anything that helps humanity for real,
they don't want it.
No,
it's been
they don't. I agree with you, but let's start saying things a little differently. Anything that actually helped humanity evolve or live better
or longer
goes under attack from the very people that you thought was your government. The governments, as you've known them, are trash, are parasitic garbage. Likewise with the priesthood, who've been running all of the religious organizations. Now that's the truth. The uncomfortable paradigm that we're dealing with now is humanity trying to handle the collapse of all the agencies around these whole paradigms, both political and religious, not knowing that they have been enemies to humanity. They have not been supportive of humanity.
Hence our conversation about the things that must happen.
Nature's law, nature's
must occur in order for
it must come down in order for humanity to be liberated. The problem, part of the problem that we have is that humanity has been mentally dependent upon these agencies because they have known nothing else. So therefore they trust nothing else because it's been done to them from childhood.
Yeah.
So it's not that they lack divine intelligence. They do have it. Their reference points are dead. Their education is toxic. And then they have this as a reference point to try to solve problems, which is why the people keep going in circles. This is again why, when you look at the dynamics, considering the priesthood and their operations, force du jour, because they're dealing with the dynamics of Aquarian energy coming in, which does not recognize person or station. So they don't have the patient options that they had in the Piscean age if they could keep messing around, because what happens, things collapse. Society will collapse. However, they have not done what they were supposed to do generations ago, even since the 1960s. Remember when we talked about the Commission on Decolonization? They kept kicking the can down the road. Now what you have is the systems are collapsing and the people have no foundation of operation. They have no foundation sightful transitional agencies. Fake spirituality has itself been a business. It has not been an issue of option of what people believe or what they don't believe. For the most part, all of the platforms themselves have been contaminated. Does not mean that there's no truths out there for people.
And it does not mean that some people that are doing it or are not sincere.
Exactly.
But if the basis of their education and knowledge of what they were taught,
what they were trained to do imperfectly, they were taught perfectly to be imperfect. And because they believed in the agencies and their officers, they perfected their imperfections. You know, which is again, pardon me, why beliefs, quote unquote, have such a strong foundational projection of instructions and support systems, books, etc., promoted by many for so many generations, that are sourced by many people who sincerely keep trying to fix things and nothing ever gets fixed.
Well, this next round, we were listening that, you know, the next round, like for instance in Pennsylvania and even here, something, you know, all this next round of shutdowns, which we were already promised were going to come. Mm-hmm. I think is to put like the coup de grace for the ones that they know, the businesses. We're talking about business.
The people are trying to go back to what they think is normal.
Right. And
they are disallowing it now. And this is where we're talking about on the way down here.
Right.
Because the discomfort is that it can't, because they're not, you know, it's sort of like, as an example, you know, like when we talked earlier today, now, one thing, you know, just with our conversation with us, mm-hmm. over the years, from an engineering perspective, mm-hmm. you know, I'm very good in many areas, but I consciously and cognitively and deliberately avoided a lot of areas of social media because I already know what they really are. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. Also knowing we're getting past that. But the deal of it is that people not knowing that all of these things were weaponized mm-hmm. against them, you know, yet to operate in the paradigm, the dead paradigm that's also dying. A lot of these instrumentalities are functional and are projected as necessary. However, also knowing that in the other parallel paradigms, that a lot of this stuff is not even used or necessary. However, you know, how do you deal with people that are finding their reality in a dead paradigm that you already know is past? While trying to communicate within that paradigm. So now you have to depend on trying to stimulate people to go within their upper chambers of the mind, to actually deal with the capacities, the human capacities that already exist, and then finding it difficult for them to communicate with you, or for you to really comprehend, or how do you say, find a ground of communication that's functional. And then if you do connect, they lack certain reference points to any other dimensional reality. And so it's almost like, you know how the Bible talk about casting pearls to swine type thing? Do not cast your pearls before swine. You find that difficult, or that situation too. And then you find the priesthood, who has created all this din, you know, in positions of power to counter you. And then even like a lot of times, you know, like you throw a life raft to someone and they think you're the enemy when you actually throwing them a life raft. Yeah. Because of their beliefs, because they were trained that beliefs was spirituality. And this is again why it's important for people to have a general knowledge of the 7 Hermetic laws, the fundamental principles, you know, like they read in the Bible and the Quran and the different holy books, that the truth, you know, is, and it doesn't pass away. And so that statement is based on Hermetic law. But yet, if you ask the average person about the principles of Hermetic law that we just read, most of them are familiar with it. And yet all of their world's religions are rooted there. But because of the anthropomorphic presentment, people don't know how to do a crossover. They can't see correlations. They can't see the correspondence. They can't see the duality, only because they're locked into a childlike anthropomorphic mentality by design, not because they themselves lack intelligence. Is that the priesthood is just so dark and dirty, and for their own personal benefit, they have deliberately manipulated humanity. Now, where many of them really want to help, they have done so much damage that even when they want to tell the truth, they wouldn't be believed. And this is where you find a lot of the hybrid Europeans who've been telling the truth about the politics, who have been, castigated or rejected or referred to as anti-government and a whole bunch of negatives, etc., for telling the truth. And then you see a lot of people who are in position of authority, attacking anyone who teach civics or constitutional principle, because it exposes them as part of the problem, and they have an image to the public that that they want to preserve, and they don't want the public to recognize, particularly when people start getting some insight that a lot of their so-called imams and preachers and rabbis and sheiks and other people in secret were Masons, Eastern Stars, and other things. Now, that's fine, because most of those societies has a negative connotation to the people. But if the people really knew the knowledge behind those things, they would recognize that these people are devious, and that the information itself is not, in fact, wasn't negative and never was. It was actually the spirituality and the knowledge that was supposed to be given to them that they were cheated out of. And that the reason why they're given a negative connotation to the public is so that the people don't look at them and find out that their so-called leaders and preachers and politicians were actually themselves in character demons, although the knowledge itself is not demonic. And the people would give a connotation of demonism to the knowledge, just like if somebody do this, whoa, it's a devil, whoa, he made a sign, and stuff like that. Or even this, which is the goat's head and the crescent moon, the fertility operations of the womb. But yet it's given a negative. You get the whole point like that. And so what has happened, it made people subject to the agencies of limited information designed by the rulers, distinguished from them being harmonic with nature and themselves and evolving. And so again, nature's law and nature's God.
Somebody just text a picture, and maybe they may be on the call, but they said to ask us if we would share this with their permission. And it is they got this in the mail, important business notice from the Arkansas Secretary of State. And what it's stating is that the Arkansas Tax Reform Act of 2019 transferred the administration and collection of all franchise taxes in the state of Arkansas from the Arkansas Secretary of State, SOS, to the Department of Finance and Administration, DFA. In agreement with the SOS, the DFA will acquire the Arkansas franchise tax section on January 1st, 2021, with the first tax report due May 1st, 2021 for all corporations as per the act. And then it goes on to say, for information, please visit DFA website. Whatever, I don't know what the implications, but I guess the taxes were handled with the Secretary of State in Delaware, Secretary of State, but they have transferred this apparently as of January 1st, 2021. It's going to their Department of Finance and Administration. Is that? Do you think that has anything to do with?
I would look into that, but
and I wonder if they'll do that here, because they're so.
I would assume, just on the surface, that there's an effort to correct or go back to the Republic order of things, because all the agencies and support agencies are thoroughly beyond corrupt and are actually so both counterintuitive and counter-true. Because remember, all of these secondary operations, corporate operations, were designed to, because most of the taxes that the people were in their mind paying were actually tributes to England, and for the most part, not any of the benefit actually going here. Let's give an example. Like, for instance, like people, how many of our people by the day, and we're talking about intelligent people, right, have instrumentality come from the IRS and been paying it for years and never knew that none of the finance, not one penny of it, goes to the benefit of the people here, to schools, to the streets, to any administration of the people, but absolutely goes to the Circle Church and the Chancery and to the Queen of England as tribute. Absolute, every penny. And including being divided amongst the two parties that you've been calling the Democrat and Republican Party of the Whigamores, who have outside investment and accounts offshore outside of the United States, and all the agencies were put in place to support that, which is, again, why all of these people have been working and paying taxes for years and saw no benefit. How could people generate in the reality of math, this so-called so much finance, and then always be in debt? How's it possible?
I don't know.
No, because they weren't building wealth, they were building debt. Problem that they have is that the systems have collapsed. And they don't want people to recognize that. This is, again, when you look at the math and get out of the emotions of it, right? Just basic math. A child, say elementary school, and you hear people talking about stimulus. What makes stimulus practical at all for something that's self-generative? If you're working, if you spent most of your adult life contributing to funds aside from your everyday work and acquiring, because you can only acquire for so many things, you got to get that things that you actually use.
Yeah.
How could you possibly always be in debt? And it never dawns on you. And to the point that when this cycle is interrupted, it doesn't even stop, interrupted, that the persons who are claiming to be government have to send you or anyone a stimulus check. And then don't tell you till later, because they ain't tell you, that you're going to be taxed on that too. And they don't tell you, you know, we told people earlier, the IRS is a subdivisional agency of the Circle Church and the Chancery that belongs to the International Monetary Fund that's run by the Rothschilds and the Vatican. It has nothing to do with no damn country whatsoever. And as an example, Social Security Administration, with those bonds and those birth certificate bonds, etc., marriage certificate bonds, it's part of the IMF. And the U.S. Treasury, which was dead. Now, this is back to what we were talking about earlier, America, quote unquote, and the United States, etc. It's part of the IMF. They didn't have the Treasury. Why do you think, why is it that in just this past year, they quote unquote blended the IRS and the Treasury Department for the United States Corporation?
I didn't know they did that.
Yeah, I'm just telling you. You know, just little things that take place that the average person and that people in general don't pay attention to, that affects their everyday life. There's an assumption with the people that the IRS, right, And the Treasury, or the finances that they've been getting, comes from the U.S. Treasury, right?
Yeah.
That their Social Security, as they've been taught, comes from the so-called Treasury and the Social Security Administration, right?
Right.
That's not true. Comes from the IMF.
Didn't know that.
Do you understand? And this is why, again, you know, when we gave that paper out that you put on the flash drive, and that's only a drop in the bucket of a lot of other stuff that we've been telling people for the last 12, 14, 15 years. And this is back to state of mind. You know, when we say that we're talking plural. The agencies that people have been used to as norm for them, that have been in their mind, their life, economic and life support, tied to their what? The roof over their head, or the food that goes into your mouth, or i.e. the medicine that goes in your veins and stuff. And people thinking all of these things were put in place for the positive evolution of humanity, and all of it was put in place to cause injury.
Yeah.
For profit. But we don't know other things. Do you understand?
Yes, it's the
what they
industry.
have done to humanity is beyond criminal. Beyond criminal. Point is, when people know the fundamentals of nature's God, nature's law, intellectually they can start seeing through all of this stuff. Aside, like, say, for instance, some people who just have natural, what you call psychic insight, can see some of the stuff anyway. But people who have not exercised their divine mind can use the principles and start exercising them, and actually start stimulating their divine mind and see through these things. This is another reason why they need to know Hermetic law, because it's not a belief system. It's actually the phenomena of nature. Is what they should have been taught in the name of religion in the first place. It's not just a good idea or something that we're talking about that someone may be interested in. Anything that they've been calling their so-called religions are rooted in this. However, that's just straightforward. This is actually, and as you can probably comprehend, for people who really know, why people who know these rules are usually in the minds of most people who don't really understand it, why they're atheistic. It's not that they don't believe in higher powers. They know that the masses have been given bullshit royally. But rather than argue with the ignorant, you know, they just hold a position to survive in this paradigm of BS, rather than try to convince the ignorant, if you get the point. However, some who have love for humanity try to impart the spirituality, the ancient Kabbalistic spirituality, or the ancient Egyptian knowledge, which is really the foundation of the true spirituality and religion. And this is, again, why, like, you start finding, when people who are really scholarly in religious study, if they share that information, many of the people who have been groomed in the name of religion actually don't relate to it. They think that you're anti-religious, not knowing that they've been under mind control. You know, so the paradigm is very interesting. This is the other problem that they're having, and this is a problem lot for humanity at masses, is that these institutions that they've been dependent on, that they're looking for restoration of, have run their course. They're dead. The rulers have nothing in its place, and so they're caught as being both disingenuous and unqualified to guide you. Most of them, if they told the truth, then they would become the enemy, because the people would recognize that they've always been living a different philosophy for their personal lives. This is where, you know, when people start really examining things and discover that the priesthood and the politicians have always said, do as I said, do not as I do, then they'll begin to understand why, as opposed to looking at it as circumstantial, that it was deliberate. and that these people were not honorable at all. From the beginning, they were never honorable. And that all this demonology that they've been promoting to the public was actually they themselves in the platform of their governmental operations in both the religious world and the political realm. Now that's the real truth.
Mhm.
And when you're looking at some of these changes that are being made in the political agendas, I relate this to you. Some of them are trying to help fix some of this stuff before they get lynched by the people. Because when the people find out the priesthood and the politicians together cognitively did this to us, you can also understand the difficulty that they're having with Donald Trump. And I'm not, like I said before, and I'll say again, I'm not defending Donald Trump. But I'll tell you this, Donald Trump didn't lose that election. Not that there was an election in the concept that people think there was an election. He was appointed, and he's still appointed. And he must carry out what he was appointed to do, irregardless of what they're telling the masses.
But I guess my question early at the very beginning, when you begin to read the executive order, was whether or not, given what we're told is happening, and if in fact Biden does take office, because some of those things that was just released on the 2nd of November. He's talking about 120 days out, and this and that and the other. If he's going to be out, he'll be out of office by then. Does that mean that whoever takes office would have to follow
Let's put
those?
it this way: how can anyone who holds that office, right, operate other than in a Republican platform that's been restored, without obviously exposing themselves and being immediately lynched by others? Now, keep in mind, it's not so much our people, because remember, our people are still semi-asleep and paradoxically twisted right now. However, the middle-class Europeans who have, in the last 10 years or so, watched their middle-class platform being dissolved.
Mm-hmm.
If you think for 1 minute, not even a half a minute, that the Kyklos operations of Zionists, etc., known as the Democratic Party,
Mm-hmm.
will be able to execute their platforms, their design platforms, and get away with it and breathe, I suggest things will be open in such a way that it'll amaze most people how vicious they will become. Put it this way: most of the cure of the corrupt political platform that's operating at North America
Mm-hmm.
will be dismantled by hybrid Europeans.
Well, we already see that. That's who's out there.
No, but I'm just telling you. I'm telling you the politics of it all. Although the true heirs and beneficiaries are Aboriginal people, and this is back to the dynamics of the great and dreadful at the same time. It's a great day and a dreadful day at the same time.
Mm-hmm.
According to where you are. However, no one will escape it. Doesn't matter what side they're on. You know, where people think they're going to sit back and not, you know, the idea, oh, I'm not into that, I'm not going to be involved. It involves you whether you like it or not. But the other deal of it is what they sought and what they seek for people who are voting, because they need a new stock.
Mm-hmm.
Their vote counts as well from the point of view that they're sanctioning themselves as stock. But as far as, you know, the idea of their voice being heard to the positive, their votes don't count, never did. Do you understand? Because they're being used, if you get the point. You know how people say vote counts? Yeah, not the way they thought it was, though. They're actually sanctioning for a continuation of the perpetration of the fraud that got us here in the first place. However, it does them no good, because the fact of the matter is that the world, remember I've been telling people for the last 5 or 7 years, the world's no longer buying their treasury bonds, so it doesn't matter if they keep creating these instrumentalities. No one's buying them. So you have a feedback loop. This is, again, as we've told the people, that the credit windows of the world have frozen. And the trade windows of the world have frozen. Donald Trump's assigned to start helping fix this thing, and he can choose to do it or not do it. Doesn't matter. They will fix it, or it collapses altogether. They will not return to quote unquote norms. It wasn't norm then, and it ain't norm now because it's dead. It's sort of like trying to run the algorithms of the operative world today with a rotary phone. No matter how beautiful that phone is, if you're not prepared to actually move ahead, you can stand there and twiddle your fingers and either become fodder, or you can do what? Render unto Caesar what is Caesar's. And I know you want to go back to that Job. It's not there. Get over yourself. You know what I mean? And, you know, the paradigm of, say, even corporations putting funds aside for you and me to fly to Fresno, California every week back and forth, right, on a flight to have meetings with some other corporate head. You know, you better get used to Zoom, and then you better get used to be going beyond that even. But that's for now, if you get the whole point.
Yeah. It's a new paradigm. You said that's a Zoom stock is soaring because everybody's virtual. Everything is, they're trying to get us into a virtual reality. Well, we kind of are in a virtual reality.
You've been there.
Anyway, that's what I said. I had to correct myself.
That is part of the new world.
We are projecting, you know, I firmly believe that consciousness is somewhere out there projecting itself into what we see. So we've really been in a virtual reality situation. Anyway, but they're changing,
becoming cognate and harmonic with it.
Yeah.
And
absolutely.
Operative.
Absolutely.
See, but the deal that a lot of the priesthood problems are having is that they're afraid of us coming to that realization and jumping past that too, because that a lot of that's going to be obsolete in short order too. That's what I'm trying to say.
Well, that's what we're saying, that everything that gets released is just something that they've been sitting on, that's been here for, you know, it's being phased in.
By the time you get used to it, you're going to be jumping again.
Yeah. But what we need to really do is get on that. You know, I noticed that people like there's like Dr. Phil Valentine, Billy Carson, and Black Magic 363, and all that. Everybody's starting to talk about remote viewing and all that. This is a skill, you know, that somebody can learn, but it's something that we used to do anyway, because we didn't have telephones and teleview prompters and all that stuff. We just had this.
Exactly.
We just had this. And so remote viewing is just getting people back into the place where you can really see what's going on. That, you know, big brother and sister can watch.
You know, an interesting thing, like you mentioned, Brother Phil, right? When I used to go to his house in New York years ago, like in 95, 94, 95, Phil used to have different metaphysicians come, you know, from around the country, and a lot of celebrities even came through. And myself and Hannibal, we went up there, you know, we at that time was sharing some of our literature with Phil and his son, etc. What's that street? Start with C, where he used to live on that. He used to domicile on that street in New York. And he used to have a TV in the backyard, in the living room, and it used to be packed, right? And when you look at Phil's metaphysical and spiritual development, you know, the things that a lot of things that were talked about then is that's like grade school cakewalk to him now. You know what I mean? And it is not unlike that. That's going to be with humanity on a larger scale. You know what I mean? Now, the capacity of them recognizing that all of the paradigms, the support paradigms that were in place to support both the agencies and the so-called Jobs is dead. You know, even you look at the subtle things, little subtle things, where how we invested ourselves in, as an example, with women, right? Yeah. Where women invested in all kinds of different makeups and different looks for different affairs in different activities. Yeah. That they will not invest in anymore. It's dead.
Yeah, that's true.
You know, and so now you have both transportation of, distribution of, construction of, manufacturing of, a lot of support systems that support those things, something as simple as makeup. That's broader than most people think. As just a small paradigm.
Yeah.
Even the different
even clothing styles,
yeah,
because if you're not,
aren't even necessary.
You don't need. I was out the other day, and I mean, like, you see me with my T-shirt. What does it say?
Yeah.
It just says.
Even look at this.
Yeah, you're wearing T-shirts. You're wearing slippers, and you're in front of a screen.
Every sort of like every day. I remember it used to be every day, even when I was going to school. You know, I remember there was a time I wouldn't even wear sneaks.
Now you call yourself Taji guy with the cheap sneaks.
Yeah. I would not wear a pair of pants that didn't have a crease in it. You know, I would not wear an unpressed shirt. You know what I mean? Now it's a pain in two butts. You know what I mean? Well, I got about 5 or 6 suits that I've never even worn that I got the plastic over so they don't collect dust, because I ain't gonna wear them probably, whatever. And that's not even stuff that I do wear, if you get the point. And it's not necessarily, I don't even like the look.
Everything has changed. I think we can create simplicity. All, like you said, all of the things that we have come to think that we needed to be up on or part of in order to be whatever it was, like you said, is collapsing. That in and of itself is causing extra finances to be in your pocket, because
and remember, people were going to those Jobs to produce those products,
right? Because
to move those products, to transport those products, to support systems to manufacture those products, the houses to sell those products. That is dead on so many fronts.
Right.
So now look at this, and this is back to the dynamics that you see that they're asking for stimulus to keep these stores open for products they're not going to damn sell.
Yeah.
They're asking to support airlines, right? That ain't going to damn fly.
Right.
They've got in the pipeline, debt for airplanes that ain't going to damn fly.
I have a friend that's an airline mechanic, and he's not been able to work for, since March, because they're not, when you go fix what, they're not flying.
Because a lot of their big ticket operations were corporations where people were going to meetings all over the place.
Mm-hmm.
Anybody on no daggone meetings?
No.
Like you say, virtual.
They're having virtual concerts and stuff. Let's sit home and do this. And virtual.
And then a lot of people got laid off, and they were all sad and everything. Then they got used to working home. I was looking at my niece when I was over the house. I was home, right, the other day, right? So I was home, niece working, got her desk, doing work that she was doing on a regular basis, from when before she had her baby, she going back and forth, babysitter and a whole bunch of other stuff. Now she's home, got the baby, they're all having fun, she's cooking, and then going back to her desk, going to work, getting work done and everything. Please.
Like, who wants to go back?
Exactly not.
And that's why, I've been posting stuff while you were talking. I have all kinds of entrepreneurial streams going on, and I put stuff out there because I want people, and I refuse to be a part of anything that's not going to help
Well,
somebody.
it's not productive.
Silver for me was
Yeah.
because you kept saying silver,
Mhm.
and everything I'm doing energetically has to do with the fact that I want to help people heal themselves, you know.
Mhm.
And anything I put out there, I want people to know that it's so that maybe it'll click something, and you can sit home and you might be working still for them. Now they got you working at home,
Mhm.
but you can do this too, because
Exactly,
you don't
for
have.
yourself.
Yeah, nobody's gonna, you know, get on you.
A lot of them businesses are going to go out as people begin to recognize their own capacity.
Right.
By default, why bust your butt
For somebody else,
to make somebody wealthy when what you're doing you could have been doing
for yourself.
even before you never dawned on you?
Yeah.
People didn't remember, and this is back to people not having faith in themselves,
Right.
having faith in the quote unquote system. And the system was in place to use them up, and was retarding them at the same time. And all the agencies built around to support that paradigm. And so even look at this. How many people are in debt and so-called student loans for education that was never designed to actually progress them?
Yeah.
Not meanwhile, they need a job in that paradigm to pay for the daggone so-called student loans. So by default of reality, all those outstanding student loans, what they're going to pay them with?
Nothing.
Oh, exactly.
Because it did for most people when they get out of college these days, if they've gotten out, they don't even have a job to go to.
Exactly.
So it did. What did it amount to? Just a bill.
Which
a
was
debt.
The design in the first place, but it didn't dawn on them. See, this is what happens when the domino effect of the fraud started spiraling. It exposed the other parts of it.
Mm-hmm.
And the people have limited reference points to anything else. That's what the problem is.
2008, it went crazy. You know, I was in the housing industry, in the housing bubble, and they did a big stimulus.
Mm-hmm.
And all they did was they're saying, oh, 2020, it came back. No, it didn't stop from 2008.
The 2000 was late 2007. The paradigm of what they're calling the housing bubble, because you got to understand the housing bubble is not a qualification of what really went down.
No, I know.
That's the public statement.
That was the cover up. That's what they called it.
Yeah. The point of it is they never fixed it because they couldn't. And what they're dealing with today is 208.
Right.
What they're dealing with is that the can kicked it down the road, and the can finally fell off a cliff. So they don't even have the can to kick no more. So now to get back to what they think is norm, so they got to do it again.
But they warned us that it was going to happen again.
Again, yes.
Mm-hmm. Yep. They sure did. They sure did. They sure did. And I just, hope people allow their divine mind to kick back into.
Be prepared for radical change,
yes.
Not just change. Radical change. You got to let go. And this is the force du jour. They're being forced to let go. So what is it part of what they're doing? What is the social distancing? What it really is. All right, on another level, right? On a more metaphysical level.
Us to get together.
Remember, if the virus jump over 6,000 miles, 6 feet ain't gonna do you any good.
True.
That's number one. So let's get over that. The real deal is people are trying to get back to what they think is normal. They ain't allowing it to happen because it can't happen.
Yeah, I have a picture of Treasure with his butt up in the air, looking underneath under the love seat, and I said, looking for a new normal.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
It's not gonna.
Exactly.
It's not gonna happen.
What you left wasn't even normal.
Mm-mm.
So, and it's back to what everybody talked about. They want to get off the plantation,
and
they got thrown off the plantation and trying to get back on.
But this is what we talk about. Whenever you want something or desire something, you need to be specific about how you want that to happen. So if you just like general, I just want to get off of this. Hey, People that have specific requests to the universe about what they want, have something in mind that they begin to manifest.
Yeah.
And but if you just, the same thing with relationships. I just don't want no good man. And then you get a no good man. Why I keep getting no good man? Because that's all you're talking about is no good men.
Exactly.
So that's how the universe works.
The other thing with all of us is the unwillingness to let go.
Yeah.
Or, you know, like a gambler don't know when to get up on. They know when to get up on.
I know.
They won't get up on.
I know people that will win and big time and give it all back plus what they came for with. So yeah, of course. That's how we are. And we've been trained to be that way.
The problem that we're faced with now collectively is that the lean on agencies themselves are looking for something to lean on. And this is what the people really, it hasn't dawned on the people really that the systems have collapsed.
Mm-hmm. They don't have a leg to stand on.
No, at all.
And they don't push people out so that it'll be easier than having them go out with the boxes like they were doing.
Not just that, it's because it's sort of like controlled chaos rather than chaotic chaos, but chaos nonetheless. But no one's going to openly or publicly admit the chaos of it all. That the agencies that people have learned to depend on have collapsed. Because it was built on a fraud in the first place. They ran their course. The problem of it is that the politicians and the priesthood would have done themselves and the world a favor if they had started willingly dismantling some of the fraud, but they themselves began to get joy in the miseries of others. And this is what has really happened.
It is, we need to wake up. We need to reconnect in a spiritual level, a highly energetically, spiritually.
And it can't be fake. This is the point. Fake anything, you know, like we said a couple years ago, that all masks are off.
Yeah.
Well, guess what? They're off.
Yeah.
And you know, it's back to, you know, like we talk sometimes, people always ask for the truth, then you get it, and then they run. Well, there's nowhere to run anymore. This is the other problem that everybody's being faced with.
Yeah, and I'm sorry to say, folks, but JB and KH, they're not going to make a hill of beans difference.
No.
They're not going to. They're not going to make it. They're not going to make a difference.
What people are going to do is find themselves in the discomfort of reality that's mercifully unmerciful. You know, like we said years ago, matter of fact, I did that lecture right around the corner up on Market Street, as a matter of fact. Evolve or become fodder. And the other thing that we talked about over the years, that everybody uncomfortably is now put in the position of having to prove their God.
Absolutely.
And that can be said, that statement can be made confidently, affirmatively, without reservation. And guess what? No one will escape it. Based on their opinion or their belief. Matters not.
You're so right.
So thank you all for coming out and sharing with us at the House of Reawakening Minds. Nature's Law, Nature's God. And support the House of Reawakening Mind, because the House of Reawakening Mind is in place to support you. Again, while the planet's being made, we're being actually prepared and actually functioning in transition. While the transition is being made, aid the House of Reawakening Minds, because we're here to aid humanity, like for real. For real, for real. Yes. Oh, share with us too.
I want to share. I've shared this one before, but I just think it's relevant. It's the poem "When We Gonna Be."
Oh, when we gonna be?
When we gonna be? We go out with this.
I like that.
Trying to figure out who we really want to be, but still fighting and settling for a false identity that distorts and conceals our true nationality while trading places with the real enemy. Wake up, get up. When we really gonna see? Do you know why there's no ground on which to stand? Because we're looking for redemption, unaware we're on our land. They've got us focused on returning to one small patch of ground when throughout the universe can our presence be found.
Yes.
We're embracing his Tory while neglecting the glory of our ancient existence and deity. Truth is, living like thugs and paupers is the real tragedy.
Yes.
We protest and march blindly like lemmings off an edge, but can't find time to study for some real knowledge. Yeah. Predictably programmed for social response and reaction, oblivious to the fact we're being strategically distracted by the coordinated efforts of so-called deep state factions. Will our ignorance help their plan to depopulate the land so robotic AI becomes their newest slaves as we continually cry out to their mythos, what must I do to be saved? Or will we rise above their lies and reconnect with the Most High, who's not distant in the skies, but inside you, where true divinity resides? Time to call forth the divine spark of light that decided with determined might to journey 9 months to a distant world to take up residence in a baby boy or girl.
Yes.
See, I'm not trying to raise a stink, but I am trying to get you to think on a more critical level. You must know who is the real devil and not be fooled by what you're shown. The jig is up. Their cover's blown. This stuff ain't real. It's all a dream tied to an elaborate hocus pocus scheme to keep everyone ignorant and under subjection and the world in chaos in need of correction. Yeah. See, they've never played fair. They play straight down the middle. And right now, most folks being played like a fiddle. So we must stop looking for help to come from a system that was designed to keep us trapped without wisdom. I know for a fact we are the answer we desire to see. So tell me, my people, when we gonna be?
When we gonna be? All right. Thank you again for that too.
Well, we got a couple for seconds, but thank you for minutes. Thank you so much. I do want to put up a promo in the last few minutes. Thank you. Hope you enjoyed that piece from my upcoming book, The Thoughtarian. So let me just put up this promo for our brother. I just want to put this back. I'm gonna put a banner like right up across your face, for just a minute, because I don't have a full thing, but this is something. I just want to make sure the banner is up in the actual promo. I hope you all are paying attention to our the advertisements that are scrolling, that you support our advertiser while we were online. Yes. A lot of you asked for links for the USB drive. USB drive now, we've updated it. Now it has 752 documents. It's growing.
Yes.
752 documents. I'm going to tell you, hopefully, in that you may find one or two with a link. If it's one or two links that won't work because it was attached to something else, please don't beat us up for one or two links when you have 700 and some more things there. Please, the document that Grand Sheik is talking about is in the folder that says Tarik Bey, I think, study drive. Study. There are 8 folders on there. Yeah. There's 8 different folders on there, and so on the one that has Grand Sheik's appellation there, it'll be at the very top. It says public notice, I think. Public notice PDF. That's the latest addition to his particular folder. There's been some updates to the House of Real Awakening Minds folder. There's a document with a folder that Sister Latrice Parson Bay gave some information to, and then a brother Yerad L they have been added to the mix. So order your flash drive by, some of you have been texting throughout this particular episode. I'm sending you back information. You probably, if you've already sent me a text, I've already sent you something back. Please support House of Reawakening Minds, even though we're not physically in having our in-person classes. They just tightened the rules even more. So we'll be doing what we're doing.
They're trying to shut humanity down.
Right. But we still need your support, because we still pay a lot of things for the building that we're not using like that. So we appreciate your support. And of course, we want and we need to support our Grand Sheik, We have to support him. You know, it's time out for talking to 1,000, 2,000, 1,200, 1,100 people, and we get 200 notes in. We you know, if everybody sent one note, we would be fine. But we appreciate those of you who have supported us. Please just make sure that you like and that you share, and you know, you just, if you're not subscribed, please subscribe to our channel. It helps. We're not trying to get, I'm not trying to do it for monetization. I'm trying to get it so that people know that it's there. So again, we thank you. We thank you from the bottom of our hearts, and we'll look and see if there's any final comments that anybody, but thank you. Getting that flash. Okay. Yeah. Hope you, their cover's blown. Thank you so much. All right. Well, we're not going to belay. You're still on camera, so I know you look. I know you're tired.
Piece of Rita. I'll get some more tea.
Wait a minute. Let me take you.
That's going on right now with the biological warfare on the people, the economic problems, the so-called, which must be qualified, job qualities problems, etc.
I just have your wrong name up there. It says it's me. Go ahead.
Yes.
This is not Dr. G. This is Grand Sheik Dr. Tarik. We apologize.
Yes. So we need to go over some things to clarify for a lot of people who are becoming aware of how, or somewhat aware of how things have been operating on the planet as of late, particularly because so many people are being injured in many ways. So many families have been systematically and by design destroyed and dissolved and broken up. Relationships, the natural relationship between man and woman has been systematically attacked, to whereas the problems inherent in the social structure are taken as normal today.